I wouldn't dare say anything different because you might hear the tape played and then you know what I said.
I don't care what you say, Ida. Just be sure to tell the truth.
Oh, no. Maybe we'll do something else besides tell the truth. What do you remember about her as a little girl? Any particular, traits or habits that she had? How far back do you remember? This is what I was interested in.
I can remember the morning she was born.
Oh, really?
And
she was born right at home up on Jordan Hill.
When we lived upon Jordan Hill, and I was 15 years old. And I wasn't too happy because I thought we had family enough, we didn't need any more.
Right, yeah.
And so I went to work out right after that. And I wouldn't look at her. They brought the baby out and one big short to her, and I wouldn't look at her.
Yeah.
And then I went to work out. And then after a little while, I thought she was awful cute after a little while. And
was she the only one of the children that was born on Jordan Hill?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other two of them was born in East Gould.
Mm-hmm.
Madeline and Hazel was born in East Gould.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born up to Pittsburgh in Lake Francis.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Lester was born up the lake. Mabel was born up the lake.
But this one, Viola, was kind of an unexpected but welcome, sort of welcome afterthought.
You see, there was about 2 years and a half, 3 years difference in hers and Hazel's age.
Hazel was the next one up the line. Mm-hmm. Viola. Mm-hmm.
Then Madeline, but there wasn't only about 18 months, I guess, difference between Madeline and Hazel.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think neither of those there was that much, because we was living out on Fountain Hill, up on the farm where Jefferson's folks lived there.
Yeah.
When they were born.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother used to go to the barn to help my father in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take care of Madeline. And they put her to sleep with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that too well.
No, I can see why you were.
Then, of course, Hazel came along. And then when Viola came along, that was the last straw.
That was just one too many.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny because I don't know why I felt that way. Because most of the families, when there's a new baby come, they think they're great.
Yes, but this was the youngest of 6 or 7 children, and that's a lot. And you get up to when you get up to 7, then you're pushing things. You're pushing things for crowding as far as the bedrooms go and the living space goes. And I can see that, sure. How long were you at home when she was growing up? You left, didn't you, to go away to work?
Well, I worked at Fred Gould for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to down to Haverhill, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
I was down there 5 years.
Because I know Viola has told me about you being down there in Massachusetts and bringing presents home and things like that.
Yes, I used to try to bring every one of them something
when
home.
you came home.
And I used to make. I did taking dressmaking lessons down there, and I made a coat, and for Viola was one of the things I made, and I made a dress for her, and I dressed her a doll, and I think that is at the time. I didn't think anything about it. I just thought, well, she was the baby, And but Madeline was always resentful, and now as I stopped to think about it, I could see why she would be, because it wasn't too much difference.
She was not much more than a baby herself.
But Viola was cute, and she had a way of getting around you, and getting what she wanted.
She's good.
But Madeline was. She had altogether different dispositions. She was stubborn, and barky, and so I don't know. That's.
How about Hazel? Now, Hazel was even closer.
Yes,
Hazel
was closer than. But of course, Viola and Hazel was always really closer than she and Madeline was, because I think Madeline was always a little resentful because she thought that Viola got everything.
Yeah.
And
being another girl.
She was being put aside.
Yeah.
Which intentionally I didn't mean to misuse any of them. But to me then, she was just a baby. She was a little one.
Yeah.
And she was small. Natalie was bigger, and she was kind of clumsy and awkward, and stubborn and barky, Which Viola wasn't.
No, she's not.
And when my father was taken sick, and he had typhoid fever, and then Natalie had it, Lester had it, Gerald had it, my mother had it. And Hazel and I and Viola was the only ones that didn't have it. And so I took Viola. I went home from work. I was working down to Gould's, and I went home and I stayed. Of course, they had two nurses there. They had one there. They had a day nurse and a night nurse. One of them slept down the Sims's daytimes, and then the other one slept down their nights. And I used to carry them back and forth. And I just took Viola under my wing, and just took care of her. And but Natalie, because she was sick too, there was just like a hospital. There was just a kitchen and upstairs that we could go into. Did
you have your own well? Is that where? How did they get this typhoid fever? Did you have your own well at the time? Was the water bad?
They never figured that they got it there at our place. My father had a farm across the river, and he was cutting grain over there at that time. He was taken sick, and he and the two boys come down with it first. And then of course, Natalie, they'd been over there with them. But Mother just took it from them. She was worn out. She'd taken care of my father the rest of 9 weeks, and she was taken down with it. And she was just worn out.
Yeah.
And she was awfully sick. They didn't think that she was going to live. And one night they had 3 doctors there, and the 2 nurses was there, and they worked over her all night. And
when was this, Ida? Do you remember the year?
No.
Where did the nurses come from? I'm just asking out of curiosity because my husband had an aunt.
Well, one of the nurses come from Whitefield, and the other one, I don't know. I think she come from Boston or somewhere down around there. But one of them come from Whitefield.
Yeah. 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 No, the reason I was wondering about the nurses, my husband's aunt, one of his, she was about 10 years older than his father. So she'd be well into her 90s if she was still alive. Came up here and worked for a Dr. Jones and nursed in a little hospital that he had in Colbert. Her name was Alice. No, her name was May Walsh. May
Walsh?
Yes.
I know her. She took care of me when I was in the hospital.
Okay, well now that was my husband's older aunt.
Yeah?
Yeah, his father came from a family of 4, and Pappy, we always called him Pappy, was the baby of this family. The oldest one was a boy, and he was a doctor. The 2 sisters, May was the older of the 2 sisters. There was May, then there was Alice, and then my father-in-law, and they were both nurses. And this May was up here. I don't know whether it was 2 years or maybe a year and a half that she might have been here. I'm not sure of the length of time, but she did work for this Dr. Jones.
She was here quite a little while because she was head nurse up there, and the hospital was over Ellenwood Store.
That's right. See, my father-in-law's family came from Bethlehem. Then when he was only about 15 years old, the family moved to Brooklyn. And but the girls, of course, grew up in this area, so that's how they. Sure.
And when I was operated on appendicitis, I had fasciitis. I was in the hospital 6 weeks. But she was head nurse there.
May was there, yeah. Because I know when we first came up here, there were several people, like Elsie Annis remembered her, Sliver Bungle and his wife remembered her. Quite something. But getting back to Viola now, what was she like as a little girl?
She was.
Did she behave? Was she easy to take care of?
She was easy to take care of. Everybody took to her. Everybody loved her really. They let her go to school when she was about 4 years old because the teacher liked her and she let her go to school.
Yeah.
Of course, the school was right near the house.
That's what she said.
The school was right in our orchard, really.
Yeah.
And we went home to dinner, and the teacher took her. Well, Rachel Wallace, she was the teacher, and she lives over to St. John Street now.
Now, was she a sister to Lou?
Yes. But I never see her, but she always inquires for Viola. Well, she inquires for all the children. Yeah. She said, she's always telling me how nice she was. She never had no trouble with any one of them, she said. But of course, I was out of school then. I wasn't going to school. I was working out.
Now, when your folks moved from Jordan Hill down to the house where Azel is in now, Viola went to the Cone School, I think she said.
Yes, she went down to Cone School.
And then from there she went to Coburg Academy. Yeah. So that she was able to, in those days, which I think was a good thing, you had to take a test to get into Coburg Academy. You just couldn't simply go as the kids do now. That's a good idea.
She went to teaching when she was 16.
That's what she said. Yeah.
And I have a picture of some picture somewhere. It was taken with her in her schools. One of them was out the Forbes School out in East Coburg.
Then there was a Piper School too.
The first school she taught was a Piper school. That school is gone. Well, both schoolhouses are gone now. And then she taught out on the Mohawk. That schoolhouse is gone now. But when she taught up the Piper School, she had children that went to it as old as she was.
That's what she said. Right.
Great big men grown. Those Jefferson boys, of course, they were big anyway.
Yeah.
And she was.
She said she was something like 12 years old when she went into high school. Because I guess she skipped the 8th grade. They told her that the teacher told her that she could try the test if she thought her father would let her go to high school. And she said, I guess she had kind of a hard time convincing him to.
She began when she was 4.
Yeah. That's amazing. Do you remember anything about her when she was in high school? She said she lived with the Ciscos.
Yes, she lived with Ed Ciscos, and I was in Haverhill at that time. That she was going to school there, and but my father would never let us stay up to go to anything that was going on.
No, that's right. That's what she said.
She had to go home.
Home on the weekends.
And so she wanted to go to the ball games, and I sent her money for a while so she could go to the ball games, basketball games. And then my father didn't want to go, so I stopped there. And
keep peace of the family. And he was very strict, wasn't he? But he was fair. He was,
Oh yes, he was nice to us. If we were sick or anything, or if we needed anything, he was ready to help us. But he was very strict with us. When he said no, we knew he meant no. But I can't remember of ever giving any one of us a licking, only Lester. And Lester and I was in potato piece with him, and that's when we lived up the lake. We both small.
Yeah.
We was picking the potato beetles off the bugs and putting them into a pan, and then he burned them.
Yeah.
And Lester started throwing rocks. And he told him to stop throwing rocks. He picked up another one and threw it and hit Mabel in the back of the head with it. Then my father grabbed him and he battled his pants.
Was Lester the oldest boy? He was the oldest boy?
Yes, Lester was the oldest boy. See, my father wasn't home when I was growing up. I was 10 years old before he ever was home very much. We lived up the lake and he worked for CVL Company year round. He worked on the farm in the summertime and in the woods in the winter, and he went on the drive in the spring. And he was only home weekends. He'd come home Saturday night. Sometimes he'd have to crawl on his hands and knees to get in where we lived. The snow was so deep.
Yeah.
But he'd just come home Saturday night and he'd leave Sunday afternoon, so we didn't see too much of him.
Yeah.
And but he'd have time when he was home to put in. He'd have time off to put in a garden. We always had a garden, and we always had a couple of cows. We had sometimes one horse, sometimes two, and we had pigs, we had hens. But my mother used to take care of them mostly. Well, he got two different men from the county. They used to let the men go out and work, different places that was on the county, to go to the county farm then. And he had one there that my mother was afraid of him, and because he used to talk to himself all the time, and he split the wood or something, he'd stop, rest, relax, he'd talk and he'd rave. You would think he was talking somewhere. Mother got afraid. She told my father she'd rather do it than to have him there. So my father took him back to the county, and after that she did it. She did it. And our cattle used to have to go to drink as far as from here, to be further down to this house, the edge of the woods from here. And right through a field, where the wind could hit it. There was no shade or nothing. And they'd go the horses would go just as fast as they could run. And back at the barn, and I remember they'd have snow on their feet, and they'd strike that floor, they'd slide. And the cows, she used to have to drive them down usually, because they were kind of timid about getting out into cold weather. She used to drive them down. One day she started up the barn. The barn was quite a little ways from the house, and she started. It was up on top of the hill. The house was down in the hollow. The house used to be up by the barn, but they moved it down into the hollow because the wind blowed so hard up there. They moved the house down into this hollow. She started up with 2 pails of swill from pigs, and the wind took her and knocked her down, and she dropped the pails, and we never found the pails till spring. They brought them down over the hill into the woods, and she never found them till spring. But I think sometimes, what would the girls today that's married and think they have such a hard time, what would they do if they had to go back to that?
Yeah. She did. She worked very hard. But now, this is just a side. How long a life did she have, your mother? How long did she live? How old was she when she died?
She was 83. She died 2 days after her 83rd birthday.
Yeah.
The last 3 years of her living, I took care of Mrs. Lombard, even where she lived, Mrs. Lombard. I took care of Mrs. Lombard and my mother both. I had my mother with me up there.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lombard's son and daughter said that if I'd come back and take care of Mrs. Lombard, I could bring my mother with me, because my mother was taken sick. I had been taking care of Mrs. Lombard. Then my mother was taken sick, and I went down to her home and took care of her down there for a while, and then Gerald wanted me to, because his wife was sick, so he wanted me to help down there. So I took my mother and went down there for that winter. And then in spring we went out to my daughter's. And Mrs. Lombard, they had a woman working there. She didn't want to work there any longer. She took my place. She just went to take my place anyway. And they were taking Meryl away. She wouldn't stay there nights. And of course they had to have somebody to stay with Miss Lombard nights after they took Meryl away. And so they said, I told them I couldn't go on account of Mother, and they said I could bring my mother there if I'd come back to take care of her. So I did. So my mother was there the last 3 years. My mother died on the 18th of February. Mrs. Lombard died the 5th day of March the next year.
It was a tough country to live in, that's for sure. And yet, I don't know. Maybe there were things about it then that were better than now. Country kids were country kids, and country kids were now all the country kids are traveling the roads. It doesn't make any difference if you live out of town. You've got a car, you've got wheels, you get in anyway. Sometimes you get in more often than the others.
I think they were contented.
Yeah.
And I think they were really happier than they are now.
Well, I think you had a closer knit.
They were so pleased with every little thing that they did have. And give them, you know. Yeah. Now you've got to give a kid a car or an airplane or a jet or something to really please them. Yeah. Because there's nothing else that they've had all the other things. They have too much. That's right. And they don't know what no is. Yeah. That's right.
Because we see that in school all the time. It's a losing battle, and it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. But the only ones that can blow the whistle on that are the parents.
But we knew what no was. Yeah. And my father said no. We knew he meant it. There was no arguments. Yeah. But now they argue with the kids, and they say I can't make my kids do this, and I can't make them do that, and they want to do something else, and they say it right in front of them. Mm-hmm. And John and my grandson, they were here last night and their family. And John said, no matter what I do with God, he says, he's never satisfied. He wants me to do something more, he says. Mm-hmm. But he gets awful mad if I don't go fishing with him and do all these things. He says, I can't do it because I've got too much work to do. Mm-hmm. And I said, John ought to blame him. He is, John. Yes. I said, just tell him no and let it go at that. Don't argue with him. Mm. If he wants to sell, let him sell. He'll come out of it.
Yes, they usually do.
But if you argue with him, well, then you're in for it.
That's right.
Just say no and let it go at that. Yeah. But I was so pleased one day I was down there, and John said the children didn't mind Pauline, but he says they mind me. And Eric the little fellow was eating his dinner beside me, and he'd had one helping him. He wanted another one. He put quite a lot onto his plate, and he just took a mouthful of it and then started to slide away from the table. John says to him, says you eat that now, you get it, you eat it. He says, I don't want it. He says, you eat it, or you leave the table. Next time, don't take so much, he said. Mm-hmm. Eric sat there and he kind of watched it, you know. They had the can that they had while they put their waste things in, you know, but it was right between him and his father by the refrigerator. And his father got busy talking, you know. He reaches over and he scrapes his hands through the can and puts his plate back in, sits here for a minute, slides down the right table and goes out. His father opens his plate's all cleaned off. Yeah. I thought I'd die laughing. I couldn't hardly keep my face straight. Yeah. But I never told John. He says they mind me.
Yeah, well, he catches them most of the time. That's the main thing. But when you kids were teenagers, say for instance, were you at home? No, you wouldn't have been home. If you were working in Massachusetts at that time. And say she would come home for weekends. Viola would come home for weekends from Cisco's when she was in high school. You probably only saw her occasionally then, didn't you? Yeah. How long did you work away like that?
5 years.
5 years. Mm-hmm. Then were you married and came back here to live then?
Yeah. I worked a shoe shop, but it didn't agree with me to work inside like that. Yeah. And so I used to come home in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And then I'd go back. I used to come home. It's July, and I'd go back last of August, and I couldn't take it in the shop, just so hot. Yes. Because they didn't have no air conditioning or anything, so I'd come home.
Can you think of anything else about Viola as a teenager, maybe that you remember at all? Was she pleased and surprised when you bring these things home to her? Probably.
Oh yes. Yes, they used to think I had a lot of awful nice things when I'd come home. Yeah. And I'd always bring my trunk home, and they'd want to help me unpack my trunk, my suitcases. And of course, I always did plan to bring them something. We could get shoes then, you see, in the shop. There'd be some little defect in them, and you could get them for almost nothing. So I used to bring them all shoes with me, and things like that, you know. But I made Viola an awful cute little dress one time. It was silk pongee
I
silk.
remember having one of those dresses myself.
And, you know, it was kind of a tan color. And, well, I guess they call it pongee color.
Yeah.
And I made it with a little, kind of like a little sailor blouse, you know, and a skirt. And I bought a red tie to go with it. She dressed all up to go to the Sims girl's birthday party. And the Sims girl told her dress looked dirty, and she never wanted to wear it after that.
Oh, yeah, because of the color. Yeah. That's kid-like, though, isn't it? Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte said. My father and mother used to go away once in a while and leave her and Viola there. But my father said he'd always have to get back because in the wintertime because they'd freeze to death. We didn't. Because they'd forget to put wood in the stove and they'd get to reading. And they went home one time, he said, they both sat with their feet in the oven and reading.
Oh, gee. They're good times to remember, though, you know, when you look back on it, because I know Viola has told me a lot about the way things were. So I almost think it's kind of nice to get it down some way or other, because the first thing you know, things will be so terribly different that nobody will remember what it was like then.
Well,
it's too bad.
Of course, that's the way it is now. If there's something you want to know that happened years ago, there's none of the older people living to find out.
Yeah.
And now, when Sadie Lord's granddaughter,
the one that stayed with Viola when she came for Henrietta's funeral.
Yeah. She wanted to find out about her grandfather, you know, Fred Fellows, where he was buried, and so on and so forth. Well, she went up to the cemetery. I told her where he was buried. So they went up there and visited. Well, Ben Fellows married Betsy Halibut. And we have tried to find out who Betsy Halibut was. Nobody seems to know it. I thought Gary Halibut's wife, you know, would know, because she's 92. They had a picture in the paper, a write-up on her just a little while ago. And she don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
But it's on the headstone that he was first wife with Betsy Halibut.
It's not. Well, you know, I thought too when Henrietta died, because Henrietta used to help me in the school library at the elementary school, and she would talk about things that she remembered. And I thought, gee, you know, it's really a shame not to get some of this down, because it's priceless, and it's some of the stories are so great. They really are.
And Henrietta could tell them so that.
Oh yeah, she had that's right. Good sense of humor. Gee, that knocked me for kind of a loop. I knew that she wasn't well, but I didn't realize that there were so many things the matter with her. She had an awful lot of things.
I saw in the store not too long ago and talked with her, and she seemed just the same. And
she'd been off her feet all winter. She had gotten these colds that she couldn't really shake because the weight didn't help her. And but there were a lot of not little things, but a lot of things going wrong in her body. Liver not right, heart enlarged. And then when she would get a cold, it would settle on her chest, and she had a rougher time this last winter than I ever remember her. She was with me 4 years anyway, maybe 5, 4 I think it was. But she tremendous sense of humor. Oh, tremendous.
But she was always the same.
Yeah, and never complained. And maybe I often wonder sometimes, so Ida, if she had complained a little bit, it might have been better. You know, might have been better. And you never when
true.
she.
I don't complain either.
Yeah, right.
You want to worry about me.
Oh,
Yeah.
When her mother and father were living, she used to work so hard. You know, her mother never was too well. And Henrietta did all the housework and everything.
The heavy. Yes,
she's
right.
And she worked awful hard, but she never complained.
Mm-hmm. So that when she did say something, then you knew that she wasn't really feeling at all well. Because the night that she went into the hospital, she called Ruth McLean. It was around 10 o'clock, as McLean said. And she said I just told Ruth that I just couldn't go in tomorrow. And Ruth McLean went out and got her and brought her into the hospital. So see, she had to be feeling pretty badly, or she would never have called.
Everybody liked Henrietta that knew her.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't help it. How could you help it like her, you know? How could you help it like her, really?
I know it. And she was so nice to her father and mother. The whole family. They'd all come there in the summer. All her brothers would come there. And she was the only girl.
Yeah.
But she had 2 brothers.
Well, you know, not last year, but for about the first 2 or 3 years that I worked with her, she used to spend her spring vacation going down and helping her sister-in-law, and I think it was in Bartlett, down that way anyhow. Spring clean. She used to spring clean for her. That's the way she spent her vacation, her spring vacation. And this last year, she went, it was in February, she and Jane, her daughter, went to Florida. And when she told me she was going, I thought she was kidding me, because she'd be like that, you know. I said to her, "What are you going to do, man?" "Well, I'm going to Florida." And I said, "You're kidding?" I said, "No, you're not kidding. You're serious." And she was. So they went down, and I'm glad she did. I just wish she'd done more things like that. But she's got 2 very nice children. Yes. I had never met the boy before, and he's very nice person. So Jane, I did know.
Well, her brothers was nice too. Her oldest brother was a lot like Henrietta, more than the other one was, but they were both nice boys. But they used to come up, they'd all come up there, and they'd stay, you know, weeks at a time. And they had a squaw house, you know. I don't know how they ever stacked them in. And then after a while, they bought a little overnight camp, and they had that sat right beside of my house. So some of them used to sleep in that. But they got along, and they made out all right.
Yeah. She was cute. One summer, she and Claire Owen and Mary Pease and Terry Hurlbin and myself, there were 5, we went over to, this must have been 10 years ago, over to the museum in St. Johnsbury, and we took a 3-week course in environmental quality, I think it was called. Well, anyway, Henrietta said, she riding back and forth, I forget how it came up, and she said, "I just told Jackson that if anybody was going to leave this house, it was going to be him, because I had squatters' rights." She said, "You'll go down the road first, Jackson, and it won't be me." But oh God! And then we this one day we were going to climb Mount Pisgah that overlooked Willoughby Lake over in Vermont. Well, we got up a ways, and Henrietta saw this stump, and the stump was, you know, about yay around. And she said, "Listen, you see that stump over there?" I said, "All right, that's where I'm going to be. You can pick me up on the way down. I'm no more going to climb that thing to fly to the moon." Oh. But she was I'm certainly, going to miss her. It seemed very strange opening up that place.
Harold used to say that he was allergic to gray hair.
Well, the first time I ever called to ask to talk to her, I got him, and I didn't know, because he didn't know me, and I said, "Was Mrs. Jackson there?" And he said, "Well, I guess so." He said, "She's sitting here playing canasta with me," and I said, "You damn fool, where did you think she'd be?" But very dry sense of humor. Those people are hard to replace because they're a certain certain breed, I guess you'd say.
She done an awful lot of work out on that house.
Oh yes, I guess she did. I guess she did. I guess she did. Well, listen, let's turn this off, Alex. I don't want to tire you. Okay? I think you did remarkably well.